You're listening to Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, the official podcast of Black Fawn Distribution, broadcasting live across the planet and retransmitted on all major streaming platforms. Tonight's program is brought to you in part by Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course Canada's #1 genre film company, Black Fawn Distribution. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't make it, so here's what you get.
It's really not that bad.
You are going to hell.
Here's your host, Benner from Black Fawn Distro.
There we go. I think that's better. Okay, sorry. I think Mike was on mute there. So I do apologize for that. So let's kick this off again. It's Black Fawn Distro. We are back from a long hiatus, and we brought the show back because we wanted to do a few things differently with it. And we started this kind of during the pandemic and really wanted to expand the program. So we're actually broadcasting live to Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube currently. And then we're also retransmitting to all of the major streaming platforms for podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please, if you're sticking around, please like, follow, share, and subscribe if you can, and that will give us a lot more reach to a lot more film fans out there, and it will also help give a lot of promotion and exposure to our guests as well. And speaking of our guests, we've got Heather Buckley, founder of Black Mansion Films, as well as a producer extraordinaire. She's got a ton of credits. We're going to get right into it with her, and we're so pleased to have her as part of the show. But like I said, as you probably heard, we're reformatting, we're resurrecting the show, we're rebooting it, and we've got a brand new kick-ass intro track that I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our friend Derek Prince-Cox, who wrote, performed, mixed, and mastered that track. And it's definitely one of the coolest intros that I've heard, at least. And Derek runs his own podcast as well called The Walk Show, and it's without a shadow of a doubt, it's a great podcast to check out, especially if you're looking to get into to hear some fantastic reviews, interviews, as well as get exposed to some rockin' new tunes that you might have not heard of before. So now a couple quick things. This track actually doesn't have a name yet. So what we're going to do is, if you want to find us on Instagram at Black Fawn Distro, please reach out and let us know what you think the song should be called. We're going to run it for a couple weeks. We're going to see what the ideas are that come in, and we're going to pick a winner, which means that you're going to get a big shout out on the show, which is pretty cool. And at the same time, that's what the song will be called moving forward. From that day forward. So you will have a chance to name that intro track. Again, it was performed, produced by Derek Prince-Cox from The Walk Show. And Derek's been in a bunch of bands, actually. He's been in Arise and Ruin, 5 years, and Wakeless, just to name a few. And we're hoping to get him on the program as well. So find us on Instagram. Let us know what you think the song should be called. Send us a message. We're going to collect them, and we're going to pick a winner, and we'll go from there. So give us your ideas. Now, if it's your first time tuning into the program, Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday features in-depth interviews with filmmakers, actors, and other members of the horror and genre community. And we try and break down the various aspects of the filmmaking process while also taking a dive into our favorite horror films and hopefully to gain some new perspectives. And that brings us to tonight's program, which we couldn't be happier to have Heather Buckley on the show. As I mentioned just before, she is the founder of the new studio called Black Mansion Films, and she is a producer, I would say, extraordinaire. She's got over 200 credits on her IMDb, and she's here tonight virtually in the Takeover Tuesday virtual studio. And we're going to get to her, and we're going to be chatting about everything from horror to hurricanes. It's going to be a fantastic interview. And like I said, at the top of the hour, this is live. Okay. So I do apologize if there's any technical aspects that don't come through as well as they should. It's our first time launching this new format. So I do appreciate everyone's patience. And like I said, there's nothing like live media, live TV, live radio, live whatever. So we're going to jump in with Heather. And before we get there, let's hit the news.
Top story. Top story. We'll give you the world. We'll give you the world. This may be the most important decision of your life. Can't stand the heat. Get out of the kitchen. Any special message for all the kids watching at home? Can't stand the heat. Get out of the kitchen. Remember, we care. We care. There are certain inherent risks that come with the territory. Top story. Top story. We'll give you the word.
Top story.
All right. This is the news segment. So this is a new thing that we're doing for the show and for the program. And I know Heather's watching me off camera right now. If she can give me the thumbs up, if she can hear me okay and hear the podcast okay, that would be fantastic. And she is in the waiting room ready to go. But first, we just wanted to give a quick update on a couple of things. And we felt that this would kind of be a neat sort of segment to do on the program to give people some insight as to what we're doing and just to give a shout out to some other people out there that are fighting the good fight, as we say. So first and foremost, a big thanks to Ben Living for the sweet beats that will now kick off the news update segment. You can check out Ben's other horror inspired remixes and reinterpretations over at benlivingmusic.com. We'll put that website up on the next episode, but benlivingmusic.com. Make sure you can check that out if you can. He's done some really cool remixes for Evil Dead, Halloween, and the Friday the 13th series. First up, moving on, box office. Let's talk about the box office real quick. It's always exciting to see lots of Halloween and genre and horror stuff kind of popping up at the top of the box office. It's always exciting. Of course, Halloween Kills and Dune are taking the top spots over the last few weeks. But there's lots of other films that you can go check out, including Lamb, Malignant, Don't Breathe 2, Last Night in Soho, and Antlers all continue to do well. And that's really, really awesome to see, especially with us coming out of a pandemic and movie theaters trying to get patrons to come back in again. So make sure you go and check out some of those movies, if not all of them, if you can. And whether you dug these films or not, it's always great to see genre titles doing well at the top of the list there. And even though it dropped in theaters a while back, while we were on the break, we wanted to give a special shout out to Nia Decosta, who for her Candyman sequel. Decosta became the first Black female director to have a #1 film at the box office. And that's a spiritual sequel to the 1992 classic film Candyman. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in another segment once we have Heather on the program. But a huge accomplishment and something that we felt deserved some additional acknowledgement. Congratulations to Nia and obviously the rest of her team. We hope to see some more sweets for the sweet in the future. Moving on, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to some upcoming events actually that just took place. Salem Frights in Salem, Ontario just put on their annual haunt. It's their first annual Halloween haunt, and it was absolutely amazing. Big shout out to Daryl and the rest of the team over there for Salem Frights. And also a big thank you to the people over at Frightmare in the Falls. We just got back from our first kind of big scale convention in over 2 years. Very successful event. It was fantastic seeing everyone again, and loved being in Niagara Falls again, and always a fun time there. But also, just like I said, great to connect with the vendors and other fans that pop out. It has been a while. We missed you. thank you for coming to see us again. Also, as well, coming up in the next little while, we will be attending the Deadly Exposure, which is the panels that is hosted by Blood in the Snow Film Festival, taking place this November. Black Fawn Distro will be there as part of that, and there are tons of cool films to see there at the Blood in the Snow Film Festival in Toronto this year, including Vicious Fun, Chamber of Terror, The Family, Peppergrass, and Woodland Gray. Of course, the festival's critically acclaimed shorts program is part of that as well. Get your tickets and for the screenings and the industry conference panels at bloodinthesnow.ca. They are selling fast, so grab your tickets today. Don't leave it to the last minute. And because we love physical media so much here at Black Fawn Distro, we felt we would dedicate a few minutes of time just to talk about Halloween. And this was just a physical movie that just came out recently on Scream Factory. Of course, I watched this on Halloween night, and it is a fantastic 4K transfer with the Blu-ray, and also quick unboxing here. You do get the right there, you do get the classic cover and poster, and a great, awesome hard case, which is kind of replacing the slip cases, which is really, really cool. New 2021 4K remaster scan from the original camera negative, approved by cinematographer Dean Cundy. And this is the best that this film has ever looked, in my opinion. And it gets the Black Fawn Distro seal of approval. If you see this one, pick it up. It's definitely worthwhile adding it to your collection. So now there is another segment that I added in, and this is going to be pretty funny, which we'll get to in a little bit later. But I am starting a fried chicken sandwich report, and last but not least, that's a segment that I decided to add just on my own because I can, and it's where I eat a fried chicken sandwich and then tell you how good it is. And of course, I recently went down to a local Popeyes chicken and tried the new chicken sandwich featuring Megan Thee Stallion's hottie sauce. And of course, here is a photo of me enjoying that chicken sandwich, just about to take a bite. It's got the hottie sauce, pretty good. It is sort of a sweet hot heat sauce, and I quite liked it. And so I'm going to give this sandwich a rock solid 3.5 out of 5. Of course, we always take out the time to review any fried chicken sandwich because they just taste so damn good. And first one to guess that reference, please let me know in the comments below, and we will send you a free woven Black Fawn Distro patch and mail it out to you directly. So let me know in the comments below. And of course, in the comments below, if you are just joining us, if you're joining us live, please leave your comments and questions down below. We'll get to them during the broadcast, and if we have time, we'll throw them up on the screen. If you've got a question for Heather or just a comment in general, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do. But having said that, let's talk about our guest tonight. That brings us to back around full circle. Like I said, at the top of the hour, we have the incredible, incomparable producer extraordinaire, Heather Buckley, in the studio tonight, and we've got a whole host of things to talk about, including her new studio, Black Mansion Films, as well as her extensive production work and some of the most collected special edition Blu-ray releases out there, including cult classics such as Candyman, Shocker, The Thing, and Deep Rising, just to name a few. But first, let's check out some of the other projects that Heather has been involved with recently, and we'll get to talking with her. So this is the trailer for the true crime horror documentary Blood and Flesh, The Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson. Heather Buckley is live on the other side, and we're going to get to talking to her right after this.
It's a chilling story proving life can be stranger than fiction.
This story reads like the plot of a bad horror movie, except this is real. And the victim, believe it or not, was a horror film director.
Macabre death, UFO docudrama.
The mystery.
Horror movie director ends up in a horror movie scenario. I just couldn't believe it.
Al Adamson. Like, who was this guy?
My claim to fame as a director, we put more on the screen for the amount of money spent than anybody else did.
Dracula versus Frankenstein.
How many ways can you distort the human mind?
What other director worked with Colonel Sanders, Charles Manson, bikers, and porn people?
A lot of breasts, blood and gore.
He was the king of B-movies.
Anybody that says that, oh, some of Al Adamson's movies were good, no.
they were not.
Look at some of your great directors. They have never made 32 films.
Obviously, he wasn't a great director. You know, a lot of directors start off making B movies, but they usually graduate.
I try to train him how to direct, how to act, how to edit. He wasn't good at any of them.
Inflamed to madness and murder by the wild, provocative young bodies of the Go-Go Girls.
Any of you say anything bad about me, you're lying.
He cheated me all the time.
You had all these people that hadn't paid because it was experience for them.
We represented something he needed, youth, energy, and he was providing something we all needed a lot, opportunity.
Human zombies in blood of ghastly horror.
His business associate, his family, always heard from him at least 2 or 3 times a week.
We're looking all over the country. Maybe he was kidnapped.
We're trying to tell the family everything will be okay, but we don't really know.
Are we filming?
We are filming, yes.
And I'm lying in bed and I'm saying, Al, I don't know where you are. If you're sick, if you're dead, if you're whatever, you've got to give me a sign.
It's wild beyond belief.
You can't afford to miss. The shocking scenes you're about to see are not suggested for the weak or immature.
It's springtime in Blackwood Point National Park. Here's what to know before you go. Bring a map. You could get lost out there. Watch your step so you don't get caught in the snags and brambles. Use the buddy system. The woods are wild and full of predators. And most importantly, keep noise to a minimum. This isn't a place for you kids to party.
What went wrong?
See you soon.
So happy all along.
All right, and welcome back to the program. I am your host, Benner from Black Fawn Distro, and I am so pumped to be joined by Heather Buckley. How are you, Heather? How are you?
I am doing good. It feels good to be back in the land for the jurors for a bit.
We were, you know what, it's funny. We were joking about, we were just talking before we came on the air, and I was just wanting to say that you were the very first guest that we had on this kind of endeavor that we started. You were kind of a co-guest with Jen Wexler, who director of The Ranger, of course. Yeah. And we just kind of sat around and I said, you know what, it'd be great to have Heather back on as we kind of relaunch this into something new. Of course, we're sort of turning it into it's a live broadcast, as well as a full-blown podcast now. So we thought, hey, why don't we get Heather to come back on? And you said yes. And before we just jumped on the air, I said, I feel comfortable because I know there's probably going to be some sort of technical difficulty, and who better to understand that than a producer like yourself of what can go wrong and how to fix it in the moment. So thanks for telling me I was on mute. I appreciate that.
There you go. Always helping out. Well, I always feel like when a part of any creative endeavor or large endeavor, mistakes will happen, things will blow up, things will go crazy, gremlins will get in the system, but that's almost like the nature of the thing, right? It doesn't mean that anyone has done anything wrong particularly. There's just things will go wrong, much like in life.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that we sort of wanted to do with this program, because we always did it live, and we felt, hey, why not? Why don't we just continue it on, and kind of see what happens? I feel like, yeah, the spontaneity of interviews, I think, is sometimes really, really fun. So again, thanks for jumping into the fire with us.
Well, Miguel and I from Horrible Imagining Film Fest had our 800 line, because I'm obsessed with call-in shows. And so we did a call-in show, like a few of them, and it was the most amazing thing.
Well, you're now, we're not really going to get into the talking about what everyone's been kind of doing like off on the side for the last 18 months. I think everyone sort of knows. We're coming out of this thing. That's great. But in that kind of space, or just before, you started up a brand new studio called Black Mansion Films. Currently operates out of New Jersey, New York, and Los Angeles. But that's what you've been working on. What can you tell our audience about that new studio and what you have coming up with it?
All right, so this is how this happened. So back in the day, I have a background in being sort of a fine artist. I worked in marketing for 13 years, and then in the film industry, FX shop supervisor and a producer. And I've always, because of like, you are a metalhead, I am punk rock, where I was always been drawn to create spaces for unique individuals, outsiders, people who sort of don't align with the system, who want to create these very auteur, very authentic projects. And I just thought, what better than to create my own little space in the industry and sort of attract the sort of people that I wanted to work with and the stories I wanted to tell, and then present it out to the world.
Very cool. And so you taking on that sort of like that head role of kind of overseeing like the most of the business aspects of that. That's obviously just an extension of what you've done from a producer's angle. But
Also as like a creative director, a lot of it is creative management, finding stories. That's why it's a studio and not necessarily a production company, because we're out there trying to find IP and get funding. Because I think if you can get a hold of funding or some sort of funding model, that's really what platforms voices. All the panels in the world does not mean anything if you don't have the finance to back these projects. So that has always been my interest. I'm repped at WPA by Brian Goldberg. And what happened, the whole story of Black Mansion is this. So after like The Ranger was around, people kept sending me scripts, a lot of first time filmmakers, a lot of like classic filmmakers like John McNorton and things like that. And then they were watching my career and seeing what was going on. It's like, read this, I think you'll be into it. Because also I spent all my time doing journalism, being on the internet, talking about things that I like, things that I'm interested in. And so those sort of scripts found me. And at some point, like, I had 12 projects, one series currently now. But I think back in the day, I had like around 6, and I was with my friend John, who works for Universal, and I talked about this sort of like virtual studio system, which sort of aligns a lot with what I was trying to do in marketing. Because when I left marketing to go into film, I was there, of course, going to create my own studio there as well, right? Because I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. Again, I always wanted to create my own space, and the idea is that you would have the production entity, the office entity, would be virtual, and then a lot of the vendors, when you do the merch and the marketing, it would sort of be relationships, but not under one roof. So then you sort of keep their character and their branding, but then also you allow sort of like this influx ideas back and forth. Because I feel once you put a roof on everything and in a cage, everything becomes Black Mansion. But to me, Black Mansion is something more collaborative, and I would want them to keep their brand, keep their vibe. It's like Black Mansion wants to work with other people. We don't want to be the only logo on the film. We want to meld with all these other folks. So I said, like, it's like, here's the IP, here's salespeople that I know, here's possible merch, how we do records, novelizations, t-shirts, like what this whole cycle looked like. And I drew it all on the whiteboard, and he was like, you literally have a studio. Why don't you just name it? And so I was in the car with Jen in a cab in LA, and I retold this story. It's like, well, you have everything in place. Why don't you just call it something? And so we decided to call it Black Mansion, because I said if I was ever wealthy enough to own a house, I would want it to be like a Black Mansion in upstate New York, where I'd have all like my jack-o'-lanterns in front. It's very occult. It's very witchy. It feels like people that are a part of a secret society, a little, black on black kind of vibe when it comes to the look and feel, very couture and bespoke. And that's and just very, very edgy and very dark and very beautiful. And those are the things that I wanted to create in the world. So that's actually the origin of Black Mansion, is that much like producing, where I happened to produce the Ranger because I was producing it already. So I already had what was considered to be the aspects of creating a studio. I just didn't say it was yet. It was actually John Estrada who said, just call it Call it
Right.
something. Name it something. Put a flag in the ground.
I gotta say, I love the name, and you shared with us your mission statement for the company, which we posted today on our Instagram. And I love the last line of your mission statement. I'm just going to read it for our audience. It says, the door is open and the light is on. All are welcome to the Black Mansion." Which I think is really, really cool. It's so inclusive, and horror has always been sort of that community vibe where it's bringing a bunch of people together and telling everyone, hey, you can come over here and check this stuff out. It's cool. Everyone wants to kind of show everybody else what they have and what the projects that they're working on.
And sharing is a big part of like music counterculture. Like, where are the cool bands? What are the shows? And it's sort of gets rid of sort of that elitist gatekeeping a little bit, because like at the end of a punk rock show, everybody gets on the stage together and sings together, and I think that's very important. So there's sort of like this leveling between like artist and audience and being accessible, and sort of, which also goes on to understand, like from a business point of view, is like understanding the marketplace, putting it out in the world, understanding who you're talking to, because you're also a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. There's VHS in back of me, physical media. I have my Fangorias and red slipcases in the other room. So it's just being a part of it and being welcoming. I remember at CBGB's when I would see like singular punks at shows, like I would go and talk to them. It's like, oh, where are you from? And the band, it's like though looking like a very frightening monster, as a lot of like punk rock people do, it's being very friendly and welcoming. Also, you could understand as a metalhead, the idea is like the Manowar covers are like incredibly insane, but the metalhead itself is very gentle and sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also discussed the idea of like, if I had a studio at TIFF, if you remember, we were at the bar and we were at some fancy party, and I was saying it's like Black Fawn, and then of course like Black Mansion, that we should do like a crazy party one day at TIFF.
Yeah,
100%.
Like,
we were dreaming. It's just like, it would be like metal and punk and fetishy, and it would be like called the Black Ball, and we would all be there.
I remember that. I can't remember what bar we were in, but I distinctly remember that because it was me and you, and we were sitting at the bar, or standing at the bar, and I had to go to some party beforehand. I was told to wear a suit. And I remember you looking at me going like, I thought you were a metal dude. And I was just like, dude, I had to go to a party. But I do remember that conversation. And it's awesome to see that you kind of gotten something off the ground. And like you said, like, it's sort of like you were kind of doing all those jobs. You had all the things in place. You just needed to kind of get an umbrella to put it all under, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's just what, and we sort of shop things out. I have lots of options. I've been thinking about sort of a development fund to sort of like pay for line items ahead of time, and then just sort of like different models of financing. And also, again, like really leaning heavily into how do these things go to market? How do these things find their audience? Because as you know, because you were part of the magic of getting the Ranger to market.
Yeah.
And like the physical media, the merch that you did, we both understand merch.
It's for us. I mean, I think, and I can speak for the rest of the team as well, is that we always like the physical component of it, and having something tactile that you can kind of attribute to the film that you've just watched or whatever, and whatever that could be. I mean, if it's going to a movie theater and getting a movie ticket, or if it's buying the Blu-ray or a special edition or whatever, it's just it's like, we're all collectors, or most of us are. So, I mean, I think for lots of people out there that are actually collecting physical media still, I still feel that there's a market for it, and a special place in the market for that type of stuff. So that's kind of how we approach every single project, right? As much as we can. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's merchandise is fun too, right? It
is. The merch is good, going at the merch table. And also you want to be surrounded by things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And be reminded of the things that you love and the rubber monsters that you love, and sort of surrounding you in a sort of way. I think that's a big part of fan culture and the things that we just adore.
So speaking of rubber monsters and, things that go bump in the night, you were one of the producers on Flesh and Blood: The Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson, which is a documentary that I hadn't checked out until recently. It seems like it kind of came out right before the pandemic. So, but it is on Tubi right now, and anyone watching this program can go and watch it for free on Tubi. So a lot of Canadians don't actually know what Tubi is, but it's basically free Netflix, and they've got an absolute a huge, massive catalog of films up there, all genres, but but there is a very, very healthy horror catalog on that platform as well. You can sign up for free and check out whatever you want. But Blood and Flesh is one of the ones I highly recommend. What a fascinating documentary! Like what a weird, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like how would you kind of frame it? Because it's such an interesting story about a guy who was just sort of making movies, right?
All right, so this is how this documentary happened. So I was doing DVD supplements for a while with Red Shirt Pictures with Michael Felcher and doing a lot of the Shot Factory titles. And David Gregory asked me, who runs Severin Films, do you want to help me with this doc? And it was about 3.5 years of my life working on it. And a lot of it was finding talent, but also the true crime aspect of it. So if you ask David what it's about, we originally went in there trying to sort of archive how people sort of just went to the went into the desert for 7 days to make a movie. So the idea, when I would tell people, do you know Roger Corman? It's like, well, Al Adamson was like the Z grade version of Roger Corman, with sort of the levels of budgets that he was working on. Dracula vs. Frankenstein being probably his most famous title for all watching at home. So what happened is that I think there was about 7 interviews already done, and they went out to Sam Sherman, the producer, and then I was there, and I had this huge list of names to find, and a lot of them were impossible to find. A lot of them were people that are not on the grid. A lot of them are older actors, so you're not going to go to IMDb Pro. You're not going to go to the Academy Library. You're not going to call them up and see if there's someone there. So it took a lot of searching and a lot of detective work to find everybody, but we were sort of able to tell the story of Al, who's very beloved, how he made those films, and then his untimely death. And as people have said before, there's very few documentaries that talk about the filmmaker's death, and then interview the guy who killed Al Adamson.
Right, and that was you.
Yes. So part of what, let me think. So I think the true crime aspect was always an aspect when David reached out to me to put it together. And a lot of it was like getting all the court papers and getting all that stuff, reaching out to the judge, finding the detectives that were involved, finding the next door neighbor, getting interviews with them. And that's something that I've never done before. So I hired one of the private detectives who worked on the case to find the rest of the folks. We got all their interviews, and I was trying to get an interview with Fred. And so I petitioned Jerry Brown's office, the governor of California, because you're not allowed to do an on-camera, and you can't say like, I want to interview this inmate in California, because of just all the infamy of the inmates out there. So I couldn't get a direct on-camera interview. And there was an 800 number you can reach out to them. So I used to write letters to Fred on the 800 and leave my phone number, leave my address for him to get in touch with me. In 3.5 years he did, and we were able to do the interview and audio record it. So that was very intense. Also getting all of the exhuming footage, autopsy footage of what happened to Al, and I feel sad for our editor having to look through all that Mondo stuff. So it's in there.
Yeah, you were mentioning that just before we came on the air as well, how it's such a tragic story. It's a fascinating one, because of not only what happened, obviously, because it's a horrible crime, but also his life before that was pretty insane. Like, I mean, in a good way, right? Just be making all these movies that were like sort of made on shoestrings with like popsicle sticks and bubble gum, and just re-editing them and like trying to make something stick to get something out there. It's a fascinating documentary from that standpoint as well, regardless of the true crime component at the end, right? So
it is. I mean, part of it is that Al seemed to be very beloved by everyone in his life. He made these sort of like crazy movies. And what was funny is that how they were recut and renamed. That is just, I found that to be incredibly hilarious. But that body of work, I think a lot of times people don't hear about Al is because his murder overshadows the work that he did. And of course, like a lot of my DVD supplement stuff, like I like putting it together because part of it is archiving film history. It's sort of getting the story on the record.
Right.
Because I've been interviewed before about it's like, are people like dishing or finding information? It's like, no, I honestly am going out to a lot of the below the line people because I want to hear how it was made. And my father was a construction worker. I was a designer. We're all about process. How do these things come to screen? How do we think about those things are endlessly interesting to me. And the idea that that brilliance can be captured. And I'm very honored when folks want to tell me their story.
Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned, it's on Tubi right now. So if you're anywhere in the United States, or I believe the UK, Australia, and Canada, sign up for Tubi. Just go check out Tubi and go find out all about Al Adamson, his entire life. Blood and Flesh: The Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson is the name of the documentary. And if you have any interest in filmmaking or horror films or anything like that, I recommend going to check it out. It's super, super cool and definitely worth your time. So listen, Heather, I know that you were on the program before. You were the very first guest, like I mentioned before. Now you're back again. You're the only repeat guest that we've had so far. So we have nothing for you for that. So I do apologize, but thanks for joining us again. And I wasn't sure if we had this back before when you were on last time, but we have a rapid fire section of the program, which is actually brought to us by in part by Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager. Take advantage of their free local delivery that they have, as well as their walk-up window at their Guelph Brewery location, or you can purchase their bottles and cans wherever you purchase alcoholic adult beverages. But Heather, we've got a rapid fire section. Are you game to do this? What do you say?
I'm ready.
You're ready? Okay. So this is halftime for me. So I take one of these off the shelf, and I'm just going to open it here because I just need a little bit of a break.
Yes.
Delicious. And let's get to it. These are really quick questions. The first thing that comes to the top of your mind. And are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Rapid fire, yes or no. The new Hellraiser projects that are coming out. Are you excited?
We'll see. I really wish that a female was directing the series. Have a writer director as a woman would have been cool.
How do you feel about the female Pinhead?
I mean, that's badass. I'm as a huge fan of Clive Barker and someone very influential in my life. I think it aligns very much with the character itself.
Okay, fair enough. Moving right along. You got to pick one. What's your favorite sequel to a major horror film franchise?
Favorite sequel? Oh my God. I'm just going to say Chainsaw 3. I would.
Any particular reason why?
It's the chainsaw I saw in the theater when I was young with my father.
Okay. And do you remember that little commercial? I always remember the commercial.
The Excalibur. Oh, excuse me. The Excalibur chainsaw I saw on MTV because they had like the MTV Movie News, which I have taped on my VHS tape some here. And then Felsher gave me for my birthday one year an actually 35 millimeter copy of the Excalibur trailer. So yes, and out of all the movie props I would want in my life, I would love a replica of the Excalibur chainsaw hanging over my bed or something.
The Saw is family, right?
Yes.
Okay, so help us out. Next question. As people who have met you already know, you have an uncanny ability to track people down for interviews. You kind of touched on that a few minutes ago. What's your secret? And you can be as detailed as you want.
I'm going to just say it's persistence and make sure you call and try any aspect possible. And once you start trying to find somebody and sort of like try to find them, talk to people in their circle and get closer and closer and closer, that's it. The mission begins. It's very much like Apocalypse Now and going deep into the jungle.
How many calls I have just a quick follow-up question then. How many calls have you made before you got in touch with somebody?
I can say it took 10 months to get Walter Hill for Long Riders.
Okay. So that's the record, everyone listening out there.
That's the record of follow-ups, yes.
Okay, awesome. And next question, what do you want? What's a film that you would like to work on a special edition Blu-ray for in the future?
I mean, my always dream was to do Chainsaw 3, but that's owned by Warner Brothers, and I don't believe that they hire outside freelance folks for that. But that was my dream. I keep it as my dream. They recently put out the Blu-ray.
And I'm surprised that that series hasn't gotten like a box set type treatment. I wonder, it's probably just too split apart for the rights to do that, but it would be really great if a company, Scream Factory, could do that because they've done such a great job in the past with Halloween and Friday the 13th. I've heard some rustling around that Nightmare on Elm Street box set might be sort of on the horizon, but not
Is
sure.
that your favorite? Is Freddy your favorite?
Fred, no, Chad. So Chad's favorite is Freddy
Okay.
and Jason. My favorite is Pinhead and Leatherface.
Aw. I was
So-
like, when I was trying to figure out what to be for Halloween, I have in my little Halloween case of things to put together my Distortions Chainsaw 3 Leatherface mask from the 90s for when I'm Heatherface.
I
I was that in middle school. This is why I had no friends.
I've always, I don't know what, for some reason I've always liked Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Even the first one I still feel is like one of the greatest films ever made, let alone horror films ever made.
It is. You're correct.
It's very unsettling in the ways that recent films have kind of been, people have said that, oh, this is the most terrifying movie I've seen in a while, and it's like, well, go back and watch Chainsaw 1 and tell me how uncomfortable you feel during the dinner table scene, and I mean those are the same feelings that were probably made like 40 years ago, right? So okay, so last question, last but not least, of course, tell us more. Do you remember who the Mini Egg Gang was, and can you tell us a little bit more about them?
The Mini Egg Game? I have no idea.
The Mini Egg Gang.
No. I don't. What is that?
So I wasn't okay. So we were when we went to TIFF, like Toronto International Film Festival. We had talked about starting a gang, which is just going to be a gang that would go from party to party, just as a joke. And later on, when I had you and Jen on the show, you told me that nothing is better than mini eggs. And I was like, that's the name of the gang. We'll call it the Mini Egg Gang, and it'll be like the Black Fawn crew and at the time the Ranger crew.
I did not know that was officially minted, but I did.
Well, it's not trademarked, but
no, but I mean not trademarked, but minted. That was the Mini Egg Gang that would showed up. I mean, that would wear pastel colors, carry golf clubs, cricket bats.
Like our company colors are purple and white, so I feel like we'd be fine.
I never thought it was Cadbury colors. Wait, I have I grab this off the tree over here. Oh, I probably can't. I have like a little Cadbury mini egg ornament, and yes, it is purple and red and yellow. Black Fawn distribution is the color of the
Cadbury mini eggs. That's right. You heard it here first. Well, thanks a lot. That does it for our rapid fire segment. Thanks, Heather, for being such a good sport with that. It's always awesome to just kind of, I don't know, have some fun on these programs for sure. But Mini Egg Gang, we need to make patches. That's what we need to do. We need to make punk rock patches.
I need to merch it out. I know you were like, Buckley, we need to get on this Cult of HB patch and Snake patch, and then I drifted off to New Orleans to make a crazy feature.
Well, that's a great segue because let's talk about New Orleans because you have a couple of stories about going down there. And before we get to that, I just want to let everyone know that don't forget to ask if you've got a question or a comment for Heather about anything relating to filmmaking, producing, or any of the projects that she's worked on. Please leave a comment down in the comment section below, and we will throw it up on the screen as we go. I've only got, we do have a couple comments here. So we've got Alexander just piping in here. He's saying, yes, the Saw is family. So another Chainsaw 3 fan.
Also could be a Chainsaw 2 fan because they said the Saw is family in Chainsaw 2, which is everyone knows that I own on 35mm and have it in my boudoir.
Right. I wish I would have put that up on the ticker.
I don't have 3. I don't have 3. I do look for it on eBay sometimes, and Felcher's always like, look, there's a copy of 3. Yeah, it's true. But I was gonna say with like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that films are not shot in that style. I feel unless you're talking about. I mean, I loved VHS 1994. That's sort of shot in a very kinetic style. But things are very slow now. Things are very slow and elevated, and use the color palette of what you've seen on the Nordstrom rack.
Alexander does want to just follow up here. He does say, I was referencing Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 because it was written on the Saw. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I like the first one the most, but but 3 is hilarious just because that saw is so
It's
ridiculously big.
hilarious. It
It's
has
like
a
it's
great
literally
family.
like
It's the splatter punk heavy metal Leatherface. I have the soundtrack on cassette, of course, because I had it back in the day. But that's like crazy metal soundtrack.
and also as well, Viggo Mortensen is in that movie,
So good.
which is amazing. Yeah, so for what it's worth.
With nail polish, amazing.
And one last comment here from our friend, our mutual friend, Chad. He said, haha, Heather face. I love it. I think we need shirts. Heather, we need to merch that out.
We can merch it out, Heather face. My friend Dixie did shirts of me. We can have more shirts of me because it's stupid.
So let's like we were just saying just at the end of that last segment here, let's talk about Louisiana, because you were on location in New Orleans, and you were for a new project. I don't know how many details you can share on the program,
Yes.
but of course you could, you could leave it fairly vague if you need to, but
It's a
you had
project
some.
in the style of Liquid Sky and Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Okay.
Yep. First time writer, director, and we're on location there. Oh, the producing group, and she's on location in New Orleans. I was there since mid-August, but then I had to come back because I was on a secret Baltimore mission, and then we're figuring out housing to get back there again. It's going to shoot in January.
So, and when you were in New Orleans, like
Yes.
you ran right into basically Hurricane Ida
So
a couple months ago. And I remember this because I reached out to you and I said, hey, like, are you going to get, like, do you want to do the program or not? And you said to me, and this was your text, you said, dude, I'm driving from New Orleans to Atlanta right now, so I don't get swept up in a hurricane. And I was like,
yes.
oh, okay, get back to me when you can.
So while driving down to, from Jersey City to New Orleans, I hit very heavy weather, which could have been one of the little hurricanes in Mississippi. The sky turned black. There was an incredible downfall. So when I heard Hurricane Ida was coming, yes, I decided to leave, and my production team leave. They went to Nashville. I went to Atlanta to stay with my friend Anya Martin, who's a weird fiction writer, to wait out the storm. And then it moved our shooting schedule a little bit. So that's why, we're shooting in January. But for any film, man, the more prep you can get, the better. So we're just in prep right now. It's pretty rad. It's pretty rad to do things in New Orleans. It's a very welcoming, cool town. It's nice to walk around Magazine Street because every house looks like a haunted house. Everything looks like the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah. And it's good to hear that they didn't get hit as hard as they have in the past there. Obviously it's probably pretty hard for a lot of folks down there, but yeah, I mean, hopefully people kind of make it out of there. When are you planning on going back? Do you know?
Probably next week. I found some very good housing. So we just need to coordinate with that. So this is broadcasting live, as I said before, from the Jers. Like, we're live in Jersey. We're live
live from New Jersey. Because we tried to get a location from your Instagram on any one of your posts, and I thought I was under the assumption that all the posts would be listed as New Jersey, but I couldn't find any.
I mean, I could do that because it's a state of mind. It's very important on my little black mansion thing that it says New York, New Jersey, LA.
Yeah,
it's so important that, like, the LLC is, of course, like, done in another state, but I paid extra money to have it be a Jersey studio. So it's doing business in New Jersey. The bank account is in the Jers.
Awesome.
It's a Jersey company.
Awesome. That's amazing. And have you always lived in New Jersey?
Except for the small part of time that I was in Philadelphia for school, because I went to University Arts with a design background.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, I'm from Jersey. I'm from Jersey City, which is why I have this cadence of speaking, but I do not have the strong accent that my family does. And then I grew up in Old Bridge, Lawrence Harbor, and then I came back to Jersey City because when I was working in advertising and design, I was always working in Manhattan, and so I have I just live in a pre-war shotgun apartment filled with ghoulish delights for about 15 years. And I just travel all over the world. And this was my big thing because I love to go on the road with my 2002 Pontiac Sunfire, which is all rusting out. And it was wonderful to go down to New Orleans and to stay and stay together, because it inspired me for a lot of stuff with Black Magic. Because it's the idea that you'd wake up every day with other people and collaborate with art about art, and that was your life. It was wonderful. I also had that experience when I was working on Circus of the Dead, is that we were all staying, I guess it was a studio. It was an abandoned something that they converted into a studio, and we would sleep there, wake up, and just do the special effects work and just it's almost like living the movie. It's living the creative process. It's being an artist. It's something that I promised little Heather that I would do. That's one reason, because my actual background, so I wasn't necessarily going to become an artist or a creative person or a designer. I was going to go into pre-med to go be a doctor, but it was just, there was a lot of focus in my life for my ability to draw. I drew with my grandfather, and wanting to live a creative life. And the idea of living a creative life means that is to have a career that was creative. So you can never have an off day. You can never not come up with like strategy, ideas, talking to artists, bringing people together, that it's actually like, it's a vocation. And that's what I've been doing for such a long time. But I had this vision since I was very little that I wanted to have this sort of life. And I've always wanted to tell stories. I think it just goes back to my grandparents, because my grandfather told stories, like Polish tradition, oral tradition stories, and was an artist. And the idea that stories, philosophy, literature, movies, Chainsaw 3, all that stuff made who I was. And the idea if there's something that I can leave behind is stories, ideas, text, anything, because maybe someone will find it one day and it will be important to them. That's also why the diversity thing is really important, because I come from the New York City punk rock scene, and a lot of my friends are from different class backgrounds, all different colors, all different genders. And the idea that some people are lacking in stories, in particular scene stories, that would make them feel special, that would make them feel seen, is something that I would really want to correct. I remember interviewing Robert Rodriguez a long time ago, and I was asking him about, when did you first sort of like get excited to see someone like you on screen? And he had one of the coolest answers. Khan, Brocana Montavon as Khan. And it was very exciting.
Yeah. I love Star Trek too. It's like, that's the best one.
So it does really matter, the stuff that we put and see.
I don't know, like, maybe we can just pause and talk about this for a little bit, because but I mean, it's funny you should mention that, because I remember when I was a kid, like, I was smaller. I was always the youngest. I was always the smallest growing up, and I found an ability to be able to talk just quicker than other kids. And it saved me. And I never really used it. It was always to get myself out of a jam or get myself, away from the regular school bullies and that sort of stuff. I mean, and now I guess I'm expanding this program to a podcast, which is pretty hilarious. But as far as the creativity stuff goes, do you feel like, I always look at it as you mentioned, it being a vocation, and a vocation that is sort of more mentally based than physical. And I always look at that stuff as like, I don't know if I could take a break and just kind of retire from something and not do anything for, let's say, 2 years and then come back to it. I think I always got to be working on something new and just a new project or a new idea. Do you find that the same way, or?
I find it the same way. I mean, that's one reason why I'm interested in trying to find financing or different revenue, or finding different investors and inviting them into this space, because it is one of the hardest problems.
Right.
In our independent realm. If you're not born into the industry, if you're not born into wealth, if you're not born into a certain class system, it's very hard to access this. So the idea of putting together finance, or figuring out the finance stuff, and then pairing it with very strong marketing background. And then that's why I was asked by Kino to help with the marketing of Kino Cult. Because they've seen what I've done out in the world. And I love doing it. Like, when I moved into film, it doesn't mean that I did not like doing design or drawing or telling stories. It's just that I was always creative in management because that was sort of like the harder nut to crack. And it was interesting to talk about strategy, putting things together. And I think the people who should run art projects need to be artists because they understand, they're empathetic towards the workers, the people that are, on the ground, because we know how to make things. Right.
Right.
And that's always been very, very important to me. But I don't think I'd retire because it's like a lot of the identity and the stuff that I do is about an artist, a creator, someone who tells stories. And it's something that I like to do, but I also like to help facilitate in others. And I like people who tell stories who might be, or different styles that are different than me. I remember in design, it's like I designed in a certain way. I was taught like Gestalt Bauhaus graphic design from Basel. So it's modernism. But then I would see these other designers who do it in a different style. And it's like, it's the same creative brief, completely different take, but also correct. So I was always very fascinated in that as well. So I always I find directors that I believe in their vision. I can understand their vision. We're aligned with the vision. And I know just based on my skill set that I can help facilitate it.
And it's tough too, because sometimes whoever is bankrolling things and whoever is doing the financing might not necessarily have as much of a tie to the creative process as maybe yourself. It's exciting to hear that you're starting the new studio and seeing kind of like how that's going to work. And I do really feel like a lot of stuff is like the organizational stuff with making sure that an artist's vision sort of comes to fruition, I think is really challenging, and not a lot of people do it exceptionally well.
Do it because it's like, here's the audience's vision. This is what the marketplace looks like for this vision in this story. This is what you've seen in the zeitgeist for the story. And when you're talking to people who sort of like are writing the check, the idea is like, is there an audience for it? Can you point the audience? Can we sit down on socials on the different channels and you find someone who's going to watch these movies? Who watches horror movies? Who are these people? And like that then becomes the pitch to someone in finance and also in sales. Because are there people there to watch it?
Right. Now, speaking of people watching stuff, you have, I don't know exactly how many credits you have for working on special features for a whole host of established distribution companies, including Scream Factory and Kino. But you've a lot of people don't know that you've worked on stuff like Candyman, Shocker, The Thing. Talk to us about a little bit about getting involved in those projects, because that's, I mean, for a lot of film fans, it's a dream come true to kind of watch the film and then kind of go after the special features, go and track down the interviews. How did you get started in that? And tell us a little bit more.
This is a fascinating story. So my writing partner, Ethan Halo, was very fascinated in meeting two people in my life. One being Larry Fessening, which is hilarious because then I would go and produce The Ranger, my first feature. And then also Mike Felser from Red Shirt Pictures. And it's like, you need to meet Mike. He's very funny and very cool. So I was going up to Horror Hound many years ago, and I was in Michigan hanging out with Don May and Jerry from Synapse. And they go like, oh, we can't drive you there because there's no room in the Severn van. Go with Mike. Go in Mike's car. So I go in Mike's car, and then Mike and I, first time meeting Mike Felser, drive to Horror Hound. And during that journey, I was like, I worked in advertising. I worked in We Are Still Here doing shop supervision, Circus of the Dead doing FX stuff, Dead Still doing shop supervision and being the monster. When I go to Fantasia Film Fest, everyone is like, oh, your background, you're a creative lead in advertising. You work on multi-million-dollar projects. You do pitching. You know how to do like high-level expensive management with creative groups. And you know everyone in the film industry, perhaps you should be a producer. So I was just telling Mike this story, like in between little stops along the way. And he goes like, Heather, do you want to produce the Lionsgate disc for Saw? Just like that. And because he was in between producers. And I said, yeah. And so he sent me a list of the people to go out to. And I said, don't pay me, don't do anything. Let me do it for 2 weeks. I've never produced before. Because again, like everyone goes like Heather Buckley should be a producer. I did not know what I was getting into. And so I just treated it the way that I did like a high level management project in advertising. And then Mike said after the 2 weeks, it's like, I've never seen someone produce like this before. do you want to do more stuff? And then, which is hilarious because that was the legacy of Saw Doc, which is out now on the Saw 4K Blu-ray. Because it was delayed to go on the disc a bit because James Wan was doing the Fast and the Furious.
Right.
So now you could watch the first doc that I put together on the Saw 4K, which I believe came out this year. So that's how it started.
I actually have that downstairs, and I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it yet.
Yes.
But that's amazing.
Yes. So that was the first one that I did. And then the first one that I sort of like put together was The Thing. So Mike Felsher he has a whole bunch of ones that were very special to him. One was The Thing, one was Buckaroo Banzai that I put together. So when The Thing came, I outlined it with Ethan, who works on me with the disc, about what's going to go on The Thing disc. Mm-hmm. And let me bring up this tab. So The Thing disc was intense. So it was my first time that I decided to do like a 2-camera setup. Sometimes I do 3-camera setups in conversation because Mike said like, who's going to interview John Carpenter? And it inspired me to go like, his friends should interview him and we should do an conversation on camera. And that's how the 2-camera setup for John with John Carpenter and Mick Garris happened. And then sort of gathering all the actors together. So I had a month to put this disc together, which is insane. That's like a month to put it to scope it, put it together, get everything scanned, and then go into the edit. My friend Jack Bennett edited the whole thing within 24 hours because we were really late. Because it's like at the beginning of the month, no one got back to us. And then everyone started getting back to us. And so the talent. I think one of the special ones on here I think this is the first time we did a novelization interview. So we did Between the Lines an interview with Alan Dean Foster, which I think was the first time on a Blu-ray release that we were talking about the novelization, getting all of Mike Ploog's imagery and, getting a lot of the shooting locations, getting the original producer to do commentary for it. Who is that?
And what's really cool about that stuff is that most of the special features, that get included on Blu-rays or it used to be DVDs and now Blu-rays and now 4Ks, like a lot of those special features are getting ported over to new releases. And studios seem to be working a little bit closer together than they used to. And so those, I mean, do you take like, how does that make you feel? Like when you know, like some of the projects that you worked on are now kind of being included on future releases that collectors will have on their shelves for years?
I mean, the way that I think of it this way is that Little Heather, we went like into the library, which is like over there. I have clippings since I was young. I have a whole book collection. I have my Fangorias and Dread Central. I have the history of film because when I was 13 years old, Little Heather, aka Heatherface, was like, these things are important and we need to keep them because we're going to have to write about horror one day, which I can't believe when I would go to write about with Fangoria and Dread Central. That was a dream come true. I think my level, it's like you've written for Fangoria print edition. Like how can you ever top that? And the idea of like capturing all this stuff because it was precious content and then sharing. So the way that I look at my DVD supplement stuff that I do is the same way, is that I have the privilege that myself and my crew sit down with these incredible, talented people and get these stories to share. So in that they're like spread far and wide and that they're on other release, the whole idea is like the story behind the story is being told. People can understand it. These people are very important. And that's what matters to me. So I never think about it's like, I guess from like a Heather Buckley perspective, it's like, oh, people are seeing your work. It's like we've been able to archive these important stories and now they're being shared in a greater way, which is why I feel sometimes it's like, and I texted Shudder about this, is that they should put out into the world the DVD extras and the commentary. I think a lot of that's on Criterion Channel. I've seen some of that on Disney Plus, but really, I know it's a reason to buy the physical media, but it might be nice to put some of these stories out there. One of the most important interviews that I believe that I did for Candyman was Clive Barker, because he talked about, it was very philosophical. Right, he talked about coming out to his father. He talked about how we're all monsters because we have something about ourselves that we can't share. So it's like, so there's like a limit to connection in all of us. Talked about just his full career in general, and that's on the Arrow disc, but it didn't port over to Shout Factory, but the rest of the stuff did. So that disc was put together. I had Henry, who did Wolfman Has Nards, shoot all of that in LA, and I did the Clive Barker interview. But that's also something that it's like we put in the disc proposal, and it covers all the different aspects. It covers the sort of like African American aspect of the story, the English aspect of the story, and then sort of like Clive Barker's splatterpunk history with my friend Douglas Winter. So like all aspects of looking at Candyman.
Wow.
From class perspective, Clive Barker's splatterpunk perspective, like within his career, and how it's told sort of like in the Chicago projects, that line.
Yeah.
And Steve Barnes sit down and talk about it again, like in conversation about Candyman.
It's a fascinating story. How did you feel about the sequel? Like, what was your take on the sequel?
I have not seen the sequel,
Okay.
and nor have I seen the prequel that came up, and it's only because that I was that I have been in New Orleans.
Okay.
And I've been busy making stuff. The only movie that I got to see so far was Halloween Kills, which I did like, and people just do not like that movie, but I thought it was good to look at, and that's a big check mark. It's like, is it good to look at? Is it rewatchable? I mean, I am a Ghoulies 2 fan, so we want to keep that in our minds. So I do watch movies like that.
I thought,
yeah.
No, I thought, I wasn't a huge fan of the film, but I did say, well, the burnt mask looks absolutely amazing and super awesome in every shot it's in.
Why? As a Leatherface fan, don't you feel that there's like a Leatherface vibe to that mask once it's burnt?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm just saying it felt a little Leatherface. I even tried one on when I was at Party City. I put it on, and it's like, because I've never worn a Michael Myers mask before. Again, just Chainsaw 3 Leatherface mask, and I put it on. It felt good.
It's funny. I had when I saw the film, so a little bit of a spoiler, but just for anyone who hasn't seen it, but I don't think it's giving too much away. But there's a scene where someone's driving a car, and I was in the theater, and I was like, I wanted to watch Halloween 1 before I watched Halloween Kills, because I knew there was that flashback scene, and I was like, I just want to watch it before I go and see that. But I ran out of time, and I was just like, whatever, I'll just go see Halloween Kills tonight, and I'll watch the 4K that I just picked up. I'll watch that on Halloween. And then I was like, there was a scene with the car, and I was just like, that's so strange. It's so bizarre. And I had, for some reason, forgotten how much Michael Myers drives a car in the first movie. Like in the very first original.
I forgot as well.
Like he's driving around everywhere. Like yeah. Like he's driving around for like 20 minutes of the movie. He's just bombing around, and like in a what do you call those cars? I can't remember, but like a caravan or something. Station wagon, sorry. It's like an old station wagon.
Halloween road movie though. Okay, and then one of the things, we're in spoiler territory, so everyone has to close their ears. I think the reason that Michael Myers was killing everybody in the Halloween 3 masks was because he was not in Halloween 3. That's my fan thought there.
Oh,
it's like,
okay.
Fuck this. I was not in Halloween 3. You guys are going Sifway.
Well, we'll see how it ends, right? They got another movie coming out, so I mean,
yes. In the novelization, to quote Ethan, because he told me this, is that in the novelization, where the Silver Shamrock Factory also made the Michael Myers mask, but that's only in novelization lore. It's only a novelization. There's a detail for all your fans out there.
Well, stay tuned, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Halloween ends. I think it comes in a couple of years or a year or two from now. So we'll have to see how it ends, I guess. And but
how could it possibly end? These franchises go on forever.
That's true.
Feel, as I mentioned before, is that I would like to see different people from different background helming and writing these movies, other than seeing everything through the lens of just a group of folks.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's going to be the most interesting thing coming out of movies in general, but horror. Especially what lenses are, and I've always said this, we've said this on prior programs as well, is that I'm just interested as a fan, like as a film fan, I just want to see something from a different perspective that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like I know I kind of know how, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I just feel it's interesting and a little bit less predictable. I feel a lot of movies nowadays are predictable. I think probably because I've seen too many directed by, like you said, the same group of folks. And, perhaps it's time to kind of get
the same type of people.
Yeah, exactly. So, but speaking of which, let's talk about different people and different projects. We do have to go shortly. Thanks a lot for sticking around overtime, because we were supposed to end at the hour, but we're going to keep going a little bit longer. But what can you tell us about what Black Mansion has coming up, and how can people reach you and reach the company if they want to get in touch?
Well, I'm on all the social medias, so people can tag me in there. I'm always looking for projects that are philosophical, that are very well realized, that have sort of an authentic view into the world, an authentic insight into the world. I like things that are character driven and showcase pieces for actors. So that's very important. They can of course reach me through my agent, Brian, but they can also reach me through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just to say hi. And to support and just ask more about what's going on. But in the background, it's a lot of. I was in the middle of getting a casting director for one of the projects to attach some talent, and then I was called to New Orleans. So at the moment, a lot of it is just shopping, attaching, going out to finance, seeing who's out in the world, seeing who wants to write checks, attaching sales companies to it. So there's a lot moving around in the background always. And I have a feeling, so a lot of people are like, I write all these screenplays and these movies aren't going to get made. I feel like all the movies on my slate, everybody's going to get made. They're this beautiful garden. They're this beautiful, diverse garden. We need to put them out into the world. And we should put them out into the world.
And the light is always on at the Black Mansion, right?
It's true. Yeah, come visit, come hang out. I know we're creepy, but
creepy in a good way, not in the actual creepy way.
Listen to the loud music, have crazy hair, but everybody's nice, everybody's respectful.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I think we'll leave it there. Thanks again for joining us, Heather. I really do appreciate you coming back on the program and spending an hour plus of your time just shooting the shit about horror films and what you have going on. But we're really excited to see kind of what you've got coming up next. And that all sounds really, really exciting. Of course, Team Black Fawn up here will be keeping an eye out for any of the projects that you're attached to. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners will probably start digging through some of their special feature Blu-rays. Again, Candyman, Shocker, The Thing, go check them out. And the Saw 4K, apparently, which I need to go check out in my basement, which is sitting right beside my 4K player. I might actually have to do that tonight. But again, thanks again for joining us. Stick around just after we go off the air, Heather. We'll catch up a little bit more once we're not live. And please remember to follow Heather on Instagram at Heather Buckley or at _Heather Buckley, sorry, and along with Black Fawn Distro, which you can find us at Black Fawn Distro. So to let everyone know out there, please like, follow, share, and subscribe, whichever platform you're listening onto. And make sure you go and follow Black Mansion Films, check out their projects. And they got some, no doubt, exciting stuff coming down the pipe. So Heather, I don't think you have anything. Do you have anything else to add? Sorry, I shouldn't say you don't have anything else to add, but would you like to add anything before we leave?
I think we're good. We'll hang out again soon.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. And that does it for another episode of Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe, and help us spread the word about the program and our incredible guests. If you're interested in grabbing some more information about Black Fawn Distribution or want to check out our film titles and merchandise, you can find us online at blackfawndistribution.com. We'd also like to thank our sponsors: Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course, Black Fawn Distribution. Just a reminder that you can always catch Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday live on Facebook, YouTube, and our other social media platforms. Or pick up one of our retransmissions on any of the major streaming platforms. Until next time, I'm your host Benner from Black Fawn Distro, and we'll see you soon.